Hello there, my friends. Salamun alaikum. It's very good to be with you. I hope you are doing well, your side also. I want to talk about power because the Qur'an is very explicit about the concept of power. The word power appears many times. It appears in the form of qadr, right? Inna Allah ala kulli shay'in qadir. Verily, God is in control of everything. So power, of course, is about control. Who controls society? Who controls people? And that is really the essence of the idea of power. Now, if you are a person who pretends or portrays himself as a person of the Qur'an, and you are not addressing the issue of power or control, then you are doing a disservice to this noble book. And you are doing a disservice, you are contradicting the very mission of those who are promoting and advancing the ideas contained in the Qur'an. So let's talk about power, let's talk about control. You see, I know many people who call themselves Quranists or Quranites or whatever the term they use. Of course, you know that I don't apply that term because we are not Quranists. It's not a term that exists in the Book of Allah, in the Code. We are embracers. We are people who are secure in the principles that are espoused in the Qur'an. The idea of a supreme being, a just and kind and benevolent supreme being who has envoyed a series of envoys, commissioned a series of envoys over time, namely the prophets, the Anbiya or the Rusul, the messengers, and promises a final moment of judgment, and has declared this life as a preparatory life for the life to come, and promises the perfect or the ideal existence to be the existence that will follow this life. And that is, in a nutshell, what the idea of a Muslim or a mu'min or the Qur'an encapsulates. But the Qur'an is a code for this world. The Qur'an is not a code for the next world. It is the book of cheats, if I may use a term that the gaming world will use, and that is, it is a book of golden rules, golden frameworks, golden parameters for this life. It enables you to navigate this life successfully, to arrive at a point where you will be successful and in a position to enter the more ideal next life. But this life is fraught with dangers, with threats, with pitfalls, with traps. And so this book points out these traps in our very own nature, the nature in which we were created. We were created as a duality, right? Our being is a duality. Our minds, our deeper consciousness is a duality. It is a consciousness that is finely balanced between being noble, just, and righteous, and being self-serving, egotistical, and self-centered. So we are very, very finely balanced between serving our needs, the physiological, biological, and psychological needs that are screaming at us every single day, and the higher, noble, more selfless being that is pulling us in the opposite direction. And so, for example, when you see your mother or your father being in a position of hardship, you might deny yourself something which you crave or which you desire, in order to satisfy their more basic need. It's the same as motherhood and fatherhood. If you want to have a child, you would sacrifice so many personal ambitions, especially a female professional, to have that child, to rear that child. And a woman would be making such a huge sacrifice, even a man, because there will be a cost in terms of bringing up that child. And so we are a duality, and we are given this book as a means of navigating this life. And this book has contained in it a number of golden parameters. And these parameters are, for example, things like alcohol is no good for you. Backbiting doesn't serve any purpose. It's actually bad. Taking what is not yours, hurting somebody else, breaking your word, breaking your contract, that's bad. Stay away from that. Having illicit sex, having children, and not taking responsibility, that's no good. Being drowned in interest-based loans and transactions and monetary exchange, that's no good. So many of these golden parameters are not only there to safeguard yourself personally, but they are also there to safeguard your society, your community, to rescue or to prevent your community from becoming sunk into a quagmire of debt, of social, disintegration, of psychological, disintegration. And today, when you drive around in any country that is very faithful to Western ideology, such as my own country, the signs of mental disintegration are there everywhere. If you drive down the road in a very less fortunate or less wealthy or prosperous part of town, you see the graffiti, you see the alienation, it's right there on the walls. You see the personal alienation, you see people being left out of the system and forgotten. Those who are unable to financially hold on and keep together a meaningful, a successful financial existence, they are just left on the side of the road, steeped in drugs, in all types of other social vice, and there to be forgotten. And the graffiti, the people on the streets, the homeless people, the needles, the meth epidemic, the drug epidemic, all these are just clear signs of a community, of a society that is busy sinking, that has gone down, because the golden parameters have not been observed. Interest-based financial transactions, fractional reserve banking, which is based on interest-based banking, the promiscuity, the illicit, the sex and the sexual perversion that is, high tide, and all of these things, of course, that the human beings have failed, have gone down. Now, coming back to the question of power, you see, the Qur'an raises the issue of power and control, and it seeks a society where God is in control. Now, how can God be in control when God is not manifested in any physical form in this world? No, God is manifested in two forms. God, Allah Almighty, Subhanahu wa Ta'ala, glorious be He, is present in two forms in our daily lives and in society. The one form that God is present in is in the golden parameters that are espoused and set out in the Holy Scriptures. And those are the things that I've mentioned. Right? The parameters that I've mentioned over and over, financial parameters, social parameters, sexual parameters, parameters of redistribution of wealth, and those parameters are all there. Plus, there are also guidelines. That's the one repository or the one database or point where God's parameters are available to us. But the other source of God's direction and His guidance is, of course, the empirical rational faculties that we own, that we possess. The empirical and rational faculties, when practiced justly and not in control or in service of interest groups, would lead us to the most amazing flourishing of society. So, for example, if we need to structure an economic system, a political system, a dispensation, national policies, national legislation, that is based purely, firstly, on the parameters as espoused in the Holy Scriptures, but secondly, on what is in the best interest of the people, and the Qur'an uses this term very frequently, what is ma'ruf, what is in the interest of the generality of the people, is a fiqh term, that the scholars of law use, and it is called the maslahatul am, what is in the best interest of the people in general. Maslahatul am. Maslaha means in the interest, in the best interest, and am means the general population, the general public. So if we have scientists and scholars and researchers that engage in research, empirical and rational research, aimed at achieving maslahatul am, what is in the best interest of the people, based, of course, on the parameters as contained in the Holy Scriptures, you have the makings of a perfect, ideal society. There's not going to be a perfect society, but you may have the most ideal society. Now, your Maulana, your Shaik, your Imam doesn't speak about this, but I have to raise this. The Qur'an requires us, the Qur'an requires of us to first of all internalize the parameters, the golden parameters, the divine parameters as espoused in the Scripture, in the Holy Scripture, in the authentic Scripture, such as, contained in the Qur'an and might be present in the Bible, Old Testament, whatever, but not as reliable as in the Qur'an. And then it requires of us to curtail the power of those who are not working in the interest of the people. Now here comes the point of this video. How do we get to a situation where our scholars, our experts serve the interests of the people and not the interests of the wealthy and the elite? Because the problem with the Western society today, and this is not a reflection on the individual member of that society, this is a reflection of those who are in power and control in that society. Those forces who are in control there no longer serve the interest of the people. So all research, whether it is medical research into so-called health, medicine, whether it is research in terms of political or economic policy, whether it is research in terms of scientific, progression, they are all there to serve the interests of the wealthy elite, the super powerful. Now, who are the super powerful? Who are the super powerful? Who are these people who are in control of our world? I remember many years ago I was attending a training program, and this program was sponsored or conducted by one of South Africa's biggest companies, private corporations. And I was at the time in the world of work, in employee of a company, and I was sent to this extended program. And in this program, I remember there was this rabbi character, and he was the facilitator, and he had these, these small skull caps, I don't know, yamuka or something. he had this on at the back of his head. And South Africa, if you've never known it, South Africa, especially Cape Town, is the center, is the main center of pushing Zionism, Zionist ideas, and ultra-liberal Western ideas throughout Africa. That's why you'll find that Cape Town is very different from the rest of Africa. The rest of Africa hates these ultra-liberal, perverted ideas of sexuality and all of these things. But Cape Town, it's the norm here. We have all these annual pride and stuff, parades and all this. The sort of, really perverted kind of stuff. And I'm not, like I always say, and I want to mention it again shortly after saying that, is that I am not anti somebody who is in his makeup and in his programming and in his software effeminate or gay. I'm not against that. In fact, I have even a female that is more masculine in her makeup. I have no problem with that. I am at peace with people who have naturally a certain particular inclination. And I do not at all preach that there should be in any shape or form any war or harm. Those people have human rights such as you and me. And so let me just clarify that. I'm against an agenda to impose certain ideas on the youth and to almost like to psychologically steer them towards a particular way of thinking about themselves sexually. That's my problem. So Cape Town is really a headquarters, and I was sitting in this lecture with this rabbi character. Well, he had the yarmulke. I don't know if he was a rabbi. And I'm talking about power, right? And in every second sentence, he was saying, we were talking about organizations and how we should make our organization more powerful. Every second sentence was like the word leverage, and if you do this, then you can leverage that with your staff. And if you do this, you can leverage that with your clients. And if you do this, you can leverage. Every second sentence was the word leverage. I remember that distinctly, this lecturer, And I started thinking, wow, why is this guy using this word leverage? What does this word really mean? A lever, I know a lever is something you control it and switch on or off. Or you switch it to high or low. That's a lever. So the best way to think of how you leverage is basically control. And this guy was basically talking about how we can control society. How we can exercise power over people. And I mean, it's coincidental, this guy had a yarmulke and a skull cap, whatever. But I think it is telling. It is telling in a way that this is the type of the person that was teaching us how it was a course that was teaching organizational strength and power. So coming back to the question of power, who wields power in society? You see, the people who are wielding power, and I need to tell you this because your Maulana and your Sheikh will never tell you this, and that means you will always be playing in the baby pool. You're not going to be playing in the adult pool. You are always playing baby soccer or baby cricket or baby rugby. And I want you to start playing grown-up sports now. Play with the big people. Muslims are the laughing stock. They're the fool of the world, the village idiot. Because our Maulanas and our Imams are not teaching us how to play in the big league. Now, if you want to play in the big league, you need to really know what is power and who wields power. Now, to walk in the street, 10,000, 20,000, 30,000 people shouting Allahu Akbar and Palestine and, free Palestine, that is not power, my friends. That is not power. That is just a lot of people walking there shouting. Real power are the people who influence and effect legislation. People who craft the laws of society. People who are engaged in policy making for the entire country. And the more powerful the country, the more important is that power. But that is one area of power. Now, I want to tell you another example. When I was working in Johannesburg, in the northern city of South Africa, the economic hub, I was working in the South African government, right? I was working as fairly high up in the bureaucracy. And I met with some of the senior people, right? With like top guys in government departments, directors, etc., chief directors. And what I found was that they all have advisors. The senior guy doesn't sit there and make decisions. The senior guy has normally a few very smart guys that will be their advisor. Either they will pay that guy, and that guy will be called, executive assistant to the chief director or whatever. When I visited those departments there, I discovered, and I was working in a health milieu, right? So I was dealing with health, with the country's health matters. What I found was that the right-hand men, the people who were whispering in the ear of the ministers or the top directors, were generally British nationals. And I met these people. I was introduced to them. This is Mr. Campbell. He's here for 2 years. He's advising the minister on this new policy on abortion and how the abortion policy should be written. The child abortion, but infant abortion. And I would clearly see that power was not wielded by the minister, but by the advisors. I once visited one of these advisors, and many years ago. This is true, eh? And as Allah is my witness, this is truth that I'm telling you now. I visited one of these advisors, right? And for some reason, there was a function, and I was at the advisor's home. And the advisor, I just went through their book collection. The collection of books. And what would I find in that bookshelf? What did I find in that bookshelf? The entire Talmud. And the Kabbalah. I'm not making this up, my friends. Allah is here, is witnessing me, is present here, and if I lie, I fear that His punishment will descend on me. So I'm not telling what. The books I found there were the classic. It was definitely the Kabbalah. I'm not 100% sure if I saw the Talmud, but I saw the Kabbalah. Now these are top spiritual references, right? And these books push in a certain direction. Apologies, let me just. So my friends, I'm telling you, not a word of a lie, what I discovered was that the people who are wielding real power are the people who are advising. So I don't want you to start thinking that Anwar is a conspiracy theorist and he's seeing a Jew behind all problems. Absolutely not. That's not what I'm about. But I do want to mention that very, very deep down, and this is what my teacher, Ahmed Qasim, said to me many, many years ago. May Allah bless his soul, grant him a high place in Jannat. He said to me one day, Anwar, the future of this world is determined by 0.0001% of the population of this planet. And I was wondering what he means, and he says, no, those are the people who are determined to go into a certain direction. And the rest of the population, the rest of planet Earth, are just there to feed themselves and to live, to get through tomorrow. Whilst there are a group of people who are concerned with more than getting through tomorrow, and they are actually in the business of pushing towards the goals that they personally hold. And so it is a fact that there is a a contingent of people here that have certain goals for this world, that have certain goals for themselves. And they're pushing, and they're pushing. Now, if you think about the whole agenda of, in health, incorporating the idea of fetal abortion into the health department. And okay, I'm not talking about the merits and the demerits of abortion, right? Now, abortion, there is a lot of discussion even within Muslim scholars. The Qur'an is very clear: do not kill your children in fear of want. Allah will provide for you. And that verse clearly is applied to abortion. But now, when Allah says, do not kill your children, now we can analyze, does it mean that the children who have been born? Does it refer to the Arabs who killed their infant baby girls when they were born? Or does it refer to pre-birth children, to the fetus, to the unborn? Well, there's the dispute. The Quran doesn't say clearly, the unborn children or the fetal, the fetus. So never mind the debate there, but I have a problem with raising the issue to the level of a core principle and one of the key items in society, the right to an abortion. I don't think, you see, the idea of abortion has now been elevated to a human right, a fundamental right, whereas perhaps with the necessary research, with the necessary scientific investigation into the pain of the fetus, into the psychological, the philosophical, the social impact of abortion, maybe if we have enough uncontaminated research that is not based on the interests of certain section of society, maybe if we look at the issue of abortion without any interference of lobby groups, interest groups, or pseudo-spiritual religious groups, ideological groups, then maybe we could find a workable answer. Because I can tell you now that I worked in the health, like I say, I worked in the health milieu, and the impact of abortion is terrible on the mother, on the supposed mother, on the potential mother. Terrible impact. Psychologically, it's devastating. And then socially, if you look at the impact socially, the idea that illicit sex can hardly be promoted because abortion is almost like a backstop to prevent unwanted pregnancies. And so the impact of abortion on the sexual perversion in society or sexual promiscuity is another impact. So I say if we investigate the idea of abortion in a balanced and sound way, then we might get to a situation where we say abortion might work in situation A but not in situation B. I'm not prejudging. Personally, I don't like the idea. Personally, I think the Quran verse is referring to all, because the verse is referring to economic impact, and people generally use abortion to avert economic hardship, and the verse speaks about economic hardship. So I'm dealing with the idea of power. Who is controlling our politicians? Who is controlling the minds of our politicians? And I'm saying to you that there is a section of our global population that has a particular ideological direction that they are pushing. A very hard political direction, ideological direction. Now, ideology means ideas, ideals, values, core principles, that is ideological. And if your ideas, ideals, and values are about promiscuity, about excess, about racism, about elitism, about, herenvolk or chosen people, then your ideas, your ideals, and your values are satanic. If your ideas, ideals, values are about a certain section of society is better than the rest, the chosen people concept, if that is your ideal to create or to build a chosen people, a chosen nation, then your ideals are satanic. If you are arguing that we are building a society where there will be a small group of people who will have greater influence, power, sway, control over the rest of society, then you are building a racist, an elitist, a chauvinist society, which is a form of Satanism. And that is why I say I'm not arguing that there is a Jewish cabal behind everything. I'm arguing that there is a satanic cabal. There is a Luciferian, a satanic cabal in control of Western-orientated governments. And they've wormed their way into these nerve centers of power. The ear of the minister, the ear of the president, the ear of the top directors. And sometimes they become the very directors that control entire education, health, whatever department, culture, and they control entire departments. And so power currently is vested in these powerful individuals who are sitting there next to the minister. And that's a fact. Don't tell me I'm a racist. Don't tell me I'm a conspiracy theorist, please. If you think that's a conspiracy, then then I think you prefer not to see reality for what it is. That's the same as those people who say that Hollywood is not owned and controlled by a certain section of people, a certain religious kind of flavor of Americans, and we know who controls Hollywood. There's nothing secretive about it. In fact, they're naming it themselves. And so my argument in this video is that we have a cabal. We have a cabal that has become entrenched in the nerve centers of power. We have a cabal who is the very shapers of the cultural expression of Western society. We have a cabal who expresses the very values and the very core ideals of these societies. So what is human rights? According to them, human rights is bums and bombs. I can't put it more simple than that. It's bums and bombs. It's the homosexual agenda and bombing poor countries to hell, bombing them to smithereens. So their ideas and their ideals is bums and bombs. And we have to now worship those ideals as Africans, as Europeans, as Eastern, as Asia, people of Asia, Far East, Near East, wherever. We're supposed to also adopt the bums and bombs agenda. And we're supposed to bomb everyone who doesn't like bums. My friends, that is the people who are wielding power today. And why? They have immense power. Because there is this financial power that is merged with the soft power. Because what I've been speaking about so far is soft power. It's the power of control, of influence, of ideology. And that ideology is deeply entrenched in the United States. The United States is religiously and ideologically satanic Zionist. Zionist satanic. That is the United States, all the bureaucracy, from the top to the bottom, with a few minor exceptions. Like the one representative from Kentucky, Massey, I think. Representative Massey. One of the few that is, or maybe even Rand Paul. Few people that are not submitted, given their souls over to this agenda. And so these are the people that are wielding power, but that is soft power, and that is the most difficult power to undo is soft power. Well, Gaza and Hamas and Hezbollah has gone a long way to dismantle a lot of that soft power, to expose that soft power. But they still wield hard power, and the hard power is the control over the banking system, the control over the global trade routes, control over the flows of money globally. And that is another form of hard power. And these things are connected, my friends. Again, I ask you not to call me a conspiracy theorist, because if you look at the Balfour Declaration, go and find it. It's on Google. Just type in Balfour Declaration and see if I'm making this up. The very first line on the Balfour Declaration is addressed to Mr. Rothschild. The Balfour Declaration is a promise from the British government, or a member of the British government, called Lord Balfour, to Lord or Mr. Rothschild, the richest man in Britain, the owner of the banking system, almost the most powerful man in Britain, and also a member of the most powerful family in Europe. So you have the idea of a religious, a phenomenon, the idea of Zionism, which is a pseudo-religious phenomenon, the resettlement of Jews to the supposed ancient home of the Jews, written to the richest man of Europe. So you have the merging, and go and read that Balfour. I'm not making this up. The Balfour Declaration is a declaration from Lord Balfour, member of the British Parliament or the Cabinet, to the richest man in Britain and the most powerful man in Europe and the most powerful family in Europe, the owner, the masters of the most powerful banking dynasty of Europe. And the Balfour Declaration is written in somewhere in early 1914, 1915. I'm not sure of the exact date. But subsequently, that family has become much more powerful and have never ceded or surrendered any of their power. In fact, they've just accumulated more power in Europe, in Britain, and in America. And of course, in my country also. Two of our major banks are connected to the dynasty, to that dynasty in Europe. So what we have is soft power, ideological power, the power of cultural, of ideas, of values, of vision, of the core purpose of us on this planet. But the second power is the very, very power of money, of control by money. And these people control. You think Elon Musk just became a rich man out of his own. These people are created by the master dynasty, the trillionaire dynasty, the big dynasty that operates, that we never know, because we are not told that these are the billionaires, because they are faceless. They are faceless. And so they use people like Elon Musk and like Bill Gates and by Mark Zuckerberg. And these are just the faces. These are billionaires that are being given the cash to develop their, new areas of control and power, which is in the IT area, technology. But the real power is behind them. The real power are the people who are controlling the banking system, the main financiers, the central banks of the world. I had a friend, he was a member of the South African Reserve Bank, which is the South African Federal Reserve, the central bank of South Africa. He wrote 2 books, and he was a member of that Central Reserve Bank. Stephen Goodson, you can go and read up on Wikipedia. He's being slandered as a neo-Nazi and whatever. What a precious man to have known. One of the people I spent time with, I traveled with him. And a man who served on the South African Central Reserve Bank, the Federal Reserve of South Africa, the bank that controls the currency. And he couldn't, he had so much to share that he wrote 2 books. And he was a whistleblower. That's what he was. He was a whistleblower, and he spilled the goods, spilled the beans on them. He told on them. He spoke to me and he said to me, Anwar, this whole system is a system of control. They control the interest rate, and they control the money supply in the country, and by that they control the population, and they control the politicians, and they control the whole superstructure. And that is how they control. And he was a truth teller. And, after he wrote his second book, he was arrested for some reason. He stayed in a very small village just outside of Cape Town, Betty's Bay. And he stayed there, very peaceful, final years that he spent there. May Allah grant him high place in Jannat. And the man embraced Islam, became Muslim in his last year. May Allah bless him for that and grant him a place in Jannat. So he then was visited by the police. And he was asking them, what the hell, why are you visiting me? But as soon as you start touching the power centers, then you get into trouble. Now, Stephen Goodson was a white man. He embraced Islam, married a Muslim wife. He told on them, he exposed them, he was a whistleblower. He was a very, very dangerous man. I'm coming back to the question of power, my friends. And that is that if you want to stop playing in a baby pool, like the Muslim priests and so on, stop teaching the people about how you should keep your toes in Salah, how you should keep your fingers in Salah, and start teaching the people who are in control of them, so that we can learn how we can undo the control of the satanic forces and bring the control of Allah, of God, back on this planet. And I'm not saying we need to create religious theocracies. That's not necessary. The parameters in the Qur'an are very simple. The Qur'an is not a book of laws. It's a code. A code is a series of parameters. It's a model. It's a particular model. Now, a mathematical model or a statistical model contains certain parameters and certain constants, right? And when you apply the model, the statistical model or the mathematical model, it always produces an expected result. And that is what Islam is. Islam is a social and political model for society. It contains certain constants, certain parameters, and certain variables that if we should implement it, if we should apply it, we will produce a successful outcome for ourselves, for our society, etc. And our Maulanas and our priests who think they know it all, they should go back and teach people those parameters. And we should learn how to undo those satanic vices and controls that permeate the minds of average people on this planet. And that is the job that we need to do. How can you live peacefully? How can you coexist peacefully in a country where interest is the order of the day? In my society, we have Muslim priests who actually went to these big Rothschild banks and got paid a lot of money, huge amount of money, to structure Sharia compliant products for those banks. So now these banks have all their interest, all their facade, all their evil, and they also have the non-evil product called the Sharia compliant product. How can you ask the devil to bless you or to come with a blessing? How can the devil, how can Satan produce or create a solution that is benevolent, kind, just, and wholesome? That's like saying the McDonald's is halal. Let's go eat McDonald's. But McDonald's is also a sponsor of the genocide. McDonald's is also a killer of the people. The products, the type of ingredients that they put into their food is there to create maximum destruction. But now you see the halal sign. So and that is the type of Islam they want us to accept. Is an Islam where you put a Muslim or a halal sticker on kufr. You put a halal sticker on an evil system, and you create little pockets of halal on this whole body of evil and Satanism. My friends, that is not the business that I'm in. And I'm really, really glad and grateful that there are many Quran-orientated people who see this picture clearly. I don't know, I'm a very small fish speaking here in my corner, for example, the work of Sam Gerrans. I mean, he's clearly a man who is more than just a Qur'anist or Qur'anite. He sees the problem as it is, and Islam or the Qur'an to him is not just a pastime or a nice spiritual escape from the system. It is the very antidote. It is the very solution. It is the very threat to that power of evil. It is the solution. It is the dissolver of evil power, of satanic power. And so you cannot divorce a discussion of the Qur'an from power, a discussion on power and control. And my friends, I hope it makes sense what I've shared with you. Inshallah, at the same time, in closing, let me warn or caution against replacing Western satanic power with Muslim satanic power. You see, the power we come with, which we propose, the control we propose, is the power of God, not the power of the Sultan, not the power of the mullah, not the power of the priest. Let me make that very, very clear. The power we refer to is the power that is evenly available to every member of society that admits, that adheres, that embraces the golden parameters as espoused in the Holy Qur'an. And I espouse the power of knowledge, the knowledge that is gained and developed and pursued without the involvement, without the interest of the wealthy and the powerful. So I'm not asking here that we need to replace the satanic power of the billionaires and trillionaires and the Zionists in the West with a new Muslim sultan power. No. That, you see, that is going back to Ottoman power and to Abbasid power, and we are referring to a power that is a power of God, which involves knowledge, the best of knowledge, the best of spiritual elevation of humanity, where our hearts are primarily concerned with the higher noble ideals instead of fixated on pursuing, lust and satisfaction and personal interests. We are here pursuing a whole new concept of power, the power of spiritual elevation, the power of concern, the power of compassion, the power of love, the power of speaking out for justice, fairness. That is the new power that we are proposing that we should replace the satanic system with. And inshallah, that is the journey that we are on. And let nobody tell you that if you speak politics, you are not speaking Qur'an. That is the biggest load of nonsense. May Allah guide us. Thank you for listening. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen.